It's different from the pictures we saw before because it's not taken in the streets, it's not taken directly during the riots, but and it's not a black person, or not only black person on it, but a white mother.
Right.
Can you tell us a bit why you included that picture, how you got to know them, how you approached them?
Yeah. Well, that picture I thought was important to include because it kind of deals with the idea of, like, if you're a little bit black, then you're all the way black, you know, and the same rules apply to you that apply to, you know, full black people. So you can face the same oppression as, you know, anyone who's full black or whatever percentage. And so this woman is actually a colleague of mine, and I met her when I met her for the first time when so Philando Castile was shot, and I actually work at the Minnesota Historical Society for my full-time job, and the director said, you can go to the funeral if you want, because it's a public funeral. And so thousands of people from the Twin Cities went to the funeral. And so I decided to go to the wake, you know, the portion where you can go and view the body and that whole deal. And she was in line and she said, I'm going, and do you want to come with me? And I said, yeah, sure. You know, I feel uncomfortable, so it'd be nice to have somebody to go in with. And she seemed nice enough. And she talked about the fact that her son was afraid of, you know, possibly being, you know, shot by the police. But he said, you know, but I don't have to worry about that because I'm just half black. And she was like, well, no, actually you do, you know, because the same rules apply. You know, like if you are a little bit black, then you're all the way black, you know. She didn't say it like that. But I just thought, wow, that's really interesting. And so she had expressed that she went to the protest before, and that she didn't just go by herself or with her husband, that she went with her whole family, and that included the children. And so, you know, Avery made that sign, and they went to the protest. So I thought it was important to include because there are all different levels of blackness and different experiences that I thought were important to talk about.
But how did you convince the people to kind of sit in their living room in the end and take pictures? Because, I mean, it's the one thing to go out and protest, and the other thing to have that documented for the rest of your life and be perhaps vulnerable, as you say.
Sure. You know, it's not especially hard, I don't think, because I don't necessarily approach people very, like, cold, like, hey, can I take your picture? You know, I go up to them and I actually just, like, talk to them and see who they are first. And, you know, usually it takes 10 minutes or so or however long, and my camera's not, you know, my camera's in my bag or whatever, and I'm just talking to them as a person to see if they're open to more. You know, and then I'll ask them, well, I'll say what I'm looking to do, and I'll ask them if they want to participate. And I think a lot of times, you know, if you're just honest and truthful, because, you know, I honestly want to give people an opportunity to be heard. And I think, I guess for some people that they believe that I'm honest, you know, in my intent. And so I think that most people do feel comfortable with me coming to them and telling their story. And, you know, when I first started photography, I didn't want to do portraits of people. Because I was a little afraid to approach people. And I did still lifes, and that was just a disaster. And so, like, I was like, no, this is what I want to do. I want to approach people. And I was really shy and all that stuff. And so now you can see I'm not as shy as I was before. And so, you know, I just went up to people and I said, hey, you know, I learned about them, and I said, yeah, I want to tell your story. And you'd be amazed how many people want to be heard, you know, and people that are just everyday people, you know, and I don't think people honor that as much as we could. You know, I think in this show, you know, we do see that people, the photographers here, are honoring that work. You know, honoring the lives of the everyday people and really amplifying it and letting people know that it's beautiful. And so I think when you approach people, you know, who have lived a life where maybe their life was hard or maybe their life was not as glamorous as they would have liked it to be, and you ask them like, hey, I'm really genuinely interested, then 9 times out of 10 they'll say, yes, you can tell my story.
The title is borrowed from another photographer that cannot be here tonight, but the title of our talk, When Living in the Protest, is borrowed from Roddy Roy, who's part of that exhibition too. And as you, he takes pictures of portraits of people, like also during protests, but also in this kind of everyday protest, everyday struggle on civil rights and everything. Is that kind of the feeling you have too? I mean, there's this eruption, perhaps, of protest after in riots, but for somewhere many people, or for many black people, more or less every day is somehow a protest.
Well, I don't know if I can completely identify with every day as a protest, but I do find beauty in everyday people, like photographing everyday African Americans, you know, with an everyday story. Just because I think it's beautiful. I mean, I think the soul of my culture is really beautiful, and I feel like the nuances of our culture aren't always amplified. You know, a lot of times we see like a one-dimensional view, you know, a really flat view of who we could be. And I don't think that really encapsulates us the way that it should, because, you know, there's so many different emotions and so many things that we experience just like every other person. And I think by photographing everyday people, you know, we're able to show that and really give that a voice.
But also to show the struggles they have, and not only not only the nice situations.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a beauty in the struggle, you know. I think, you know, sometimes my mom would look at somebody and she'd say, ooh, they lived a hard life, you know, like you could see it on their face. And to me, I think that's beautiful. You know, it shows that they've been through something and they're still there. And I love photographing people who have a story to tell, whatever that story may be.
We talked about that in the panel this afternoon, like working with black people, also for white people. I mean, you talked about your experiences and Crystal as a door opener. And is that the impression you have? Like you mainly photograph black people, that it would perhaps be more difficult if you weren't African American too?